Before you fall in love with her smile, make sure she's not the very distraction the enemy sent to destroy your calling. Many men pray for God to guide their steps, but ignore the warning signs in their relationships. Today, I'm going to show you how to recognize a woman who looks good, sounds good, feels good, but is absolutely not from God. And I want you to watch until the end, because the last point might be the one saving you from the heartbreak you don't see coming. I want to start today by talking about something that is subtle, yet profoundly dangerous. Something that can creep into your life before you even realize it. And that is a woman who pulls you away from God's presence. Now, let me be very clear. This is not about being judgmental toward women or seeing every challenge in a relationship as a red flag, but there is a spiritual principle here, and it's non-negotiable. Your relationship with God is your lifeline. Everything else flows from that. Your calling, your peace, your purpose, even your relationships, everything depends on your proximity to Him. And when a woman in your life starts pulling you away from that, it is one of the clearest signs she isn't from God. You see, some women may be wonderful in many ways. They may be beautiful, charming, funny, intelligent, but if they subtly, even unintentionally, divert your heart from God, you have to recognize it. The way the Bible describes it is simple. Bad company corrupts good character. If your devotion to God is the most important thing in your life, anyone who diverts that devotion is dangerous. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine you've been walking in faith, praying, seeking God's guidance for your life. You have a schedule of devotion, you have clarity of purpose, and your heart is aligned with God's voice. And then someone comes along who is incredibly magnetic. She may have all the qualities you admire, all the charm you desire, but slowly, subtly, she starts filling your time, your attention, your emotional bandwidth in ways that leave less room for God. You may find yourself praying less, reading your Bible less, going to church less. At first, it's almost imperceptible, and you tell yourself, I'm just making space for her in my life. But here's the truth. When a relationship begins to take precedence over your intimacy with God, that's a huge warning sign. I have seen this over and over again. Men come to me frustrated, confused, heartbroken, and they wonder why their calling feels stuck, why their purpose feels stalled. And more often than not, when we trace back, it isn't because God has delayed His plans, it's because something or someone has pulled them away from the presence of God. Their hearts are divided, their priorities are misaligned, and the enemy loves divided hearts. Let's get practical. How can you identify if a woman is pulling you away from God's presence? The first sign is how your spiritual life feels when you're with her. Do you feel closer to God when you talk with her, or do you feel more distant? Do your conversations elevate your faith, or do they subtly diminish it? This is not about feeling guilty for spending time with her or for having fun, but about evaluating whether the relationship aligns with your spiritual priorities. If you leave every encounter feeling spiritually drained, if your prayer life slows down, if you start compromising on your convictions to keep her happy, that is a red flag. Another indicator is the influence she has over your decisions. God designed us to be influenced by people who inspire growth, not people who distract from purpose. A woman who is from God will challenge you to be a better man spiritually, morally, emotionally. She will celebrate your victories and encourage your calling. She will ask questions like, "Did you pray about this?" Or, "How does this align with what God is doing in your life?" But a woman who isn't from God will often influence you to prioritize her comfort over God's leading, to make choices that feel good in the moment, but compromise your integrity or calling. Let me give you an example. I knew a young man who was very committed to his calling in ministry. He was passionate about God, faithful in his small group, and intentional with his spiritual disciplines. Then he met a woman who was exciting, vibrant, fun. At first, everything seemed great, but gradually he started skipping prayer meetings, neglecting his devotional time, and postponing ministry responsibilities. She didn't directly tell him to stop, but her expectations and lifestyle created subtle pressure to abandon the disciplines that kept him close to God. He was pulled away so gradually that he didn't even notice until months later. By that time, his relationship with God felt weak and his sense of direction was clouded. And the painful truth is, this is exactly what can happen when you ignore the warning signs of a woman who isn't from God. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Craig, isn't love supposed to be sacrificial? Shouldn't I compromise a little for the person I care about? And the answer is yes, love is sacrificial, but there is a difference between sacrificial love and spiritual compromise. Sacrificial love lifts the other person up while keeping God at the center. Spiritual compromise pulls you away from God under the guise of love, and that's destructive. Sacrifice should never cost you your intimacy with the Lord, because without God, there is no love that lasts. Another thing to watch for is her response to your spiritual growth. A woman who is from God will rejoice when she sees you grow closer to Him. She will support your spiritual goals, even if it means you have to say no to things she wants. But a woman who isn't from God may feel threatened, annoyed, or neglected when your time with God increases. If she complains that you're too spiritual, if she pressures you to spend less time in prayer, worship, or ministry, that is a huge warning sign. Men, let me tell you something important. Your relationship with God is non-negotiable. It is not optional. No woman, no career, no pleasure should ever take precedence over your intimacy with the Lord. If you ever find yourself saying, "I'll spend less time with God just to please her," that is the exact moment you need to pause and evaluate the relationship. You are either being pulled away from God's presence or being strengthened in it, and the direction matters. I want to challenge you to examine your life with brutal honesty. Look at your schedule, your priorities, your heart. Are there patterns emerging where a woman, even subtly, is filling spaces that should belong to God? Are your devotionals shorter, your prayers less consistent, your church attendance declining? These are the signs that someone may be pulling you away from God's presence. And here's the thing, recognizing it early matters. The longer you allow your heart to be divided, the harder it is to regain clarity and strength. Let me remind you of a principle that cannot be overstated. When your heart is with God first, everything else falls into alignment. God will provide relationships that enhance your faith, amplify your purpose, and protect your calling. But if you settle for someone who diminishes your intimacy with him, you are choosing short-term pleasure over long-term destiny. A woman from God will never take you away from God. She will be a companion on the journey, not a detour from the road. So, if you want to recognize a woman who isn't from God, start by examining the impact she has on your spiritual life. Does she pull you closer to God or away from Him? Does she encourage your calling or distract you from it? Does she respect your spiritual boundaries or push you toward compromise? These are not just relationship questions, they are spiritual questions. The danger of ignoring this is real. A relationship with someone who pulls you away from God can feel thrilling at first, but it comes with hidden costs. It can weaken your faith, cloud your discernment, and even cause you to miss God's best. And sadly, many men don't see it until it's too late. They find themselves heartbroken, spiritually depleted, and asking, why does God feel so distant? The answer often isn't that God moved away. It's that they allowed someone else to pull them away from His presence. This is why discernment matters. This is why knowing the difference between someone who is aligned with God and someone who is not is crucial. And it begins by asking hard questions, evaluating patterns, and being brutally honest with yourself about the effect someone has on your walk with the Lord peace. It's one of those things we all desire, yet it's often the first casualty in relationships that are not from God. I want to be very honest with you today. God designed relationships to enhance your life, to multiply joy, to provide support, and to strengthen your heart. But when you are with a woman who destroys your peace instead of protecting it, everything good God intends for you can be compromised. And if you don't recognize it, you could find yourself trapped in a cycle of emotional turmoil that pulls you away from your calling and from God's best for your life. Now, what does it mean to destroy your peace? It doesn't necessarily mean she is constantly yelling or causing chaos in a dramatic way. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it's the little things that wear you down over time: nagging, constant doubt, emotional manipulation, instability. These things chip away at your inner calm, your confidence, your clarity, and even your spiritual connection. God never intended for a woman to be a source of constant emotional turbulence. He intended for a partner to be a safe harbor, someone who encourages you, someone who builds you up, and someone who helps you align with His purposes. Let me tell you something crucial. The enemy loves to attack your peace because your peace is closely connected to your purpose. A man without peace is a man who cannot hear God clearly, cannot lead effectively, and cannot fulfill his calling. When a woman in your life consistently disrupts your peace, even under the guise of love, she may not be from God. And the sad part is, often we ignore it because she looks good on the outside, or because the emotional highs feel so intense that we dismiss the ongoing stress and anxiety as just part of the relationship. I have met many men who have shared their stories with me. Stories of heartbreak, frustration, and confusion. They say things like, "I thought I loved her, but I feel exhausted every time I leave her presence." Or, "I feel like I'm constantly walking on eggshells, trying to avoid conflict." Those are not signs of love. Those are signs of compromise to your peace. And God wants His children to live in peace. The Bible says, let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts. When peace is being destroyed, your heart is not being ruled by Christ. It's being ruled by fear, tension, and unease. So, how do you identify if a woman is destroying your peace instead of protecting it? The first clue is the emotional pattern she creates in your life. Do you leave interactions with her feeling joyful, encouraged, or uplifted? Or do you feel drained, anxious, or unsettled? Peace doesn't mean every moment is perfect. It doesn't mean there are no disagreements. But it does mean that, overall, your spirit feels secure, calm, and aligned with God. If the opposite is true, that is a red flag. Another sign is how she responds when you express boundaries. Godly women respect boundaries. They understand the importance of your space, your commitments, and your emotional well-being. But a woman who is not from God will consistently push, argue, guilt, or manipulate you when you try to maintain peace in your life. She may complain that you're too distant, when really you are simply protecting your emotional health. She may make you feel guilty for needing rest, for needing time with friends, or for needing moments of solitude for prayer and reflection. Let me give you an example. I knew a young man deeply committed to his spiritual walk. He was building a business, leading in ministry, and growing in his faith. He started dating a woman who, on the surface, was wonderful, fun, intelligent, attractive. But soon, he realized that he was constantly stressed when he was with her. Small things would escalate into big arguments. She would criticize decisions without offering support, and she expected him to drop priorities that mattered to him. He began dreading interactions rather than anticipating them. And what's worse, he ignored the pattern because he was infatuated. But the truth is, no level of infatuation can replace peace. God designed relationships to complement peace, not replace it with anxiety. The Bible makes it clear that peace is a fruit of the Spirit. If you are consistently anxious, unsettled, or fearful in a relationship, that is a strong indicator that God may not be in that connection. A woman who is from God will work to preserve your peace, not disrupt it. She may challenge you, she may hold you accountable, she may speak truth even when it's uncomfortable, but she will do so in a way that strengthens your inner life, not weakens it. Another way to discern this is by asking yourself how conflicts are resolved. In a godly relationship, conflict is addressed with respect, love, and understanding. It is resolved in a way that restores harmony and builds trust. In a relationship that is not from God, conflicts escalate, recur, and often leave lingering tension. You may find yourself walking away from conversations feeling unheard, dismissed, or emotionally drained. That is not normal. That is not love. That is a warning signal. It's also important to notice the effect she has on your decision making. Peace allows clarity. When peace is destroyed, clarity disappears. You start doubting your instincts, second-guessing your choices, and wondering if your perception of reality is correct. This is dangerous because God often speaks to us in moments of calm, through clear discernment. If someone constantly stirs chaos, you risk losing your ability to hear God clearly and make wise decisions. And men, listen carefully. Sometimes we excuse behavior that destroys peace because we think we can fix it or change her. But here's the truth. Changing someone is not your responsibility, and it rarely works. You cannot build peace on compromise, on emotional manipulation, or on hoping that love alone will solve persistent conflict. Peace is either present or it is not. A woman who destroys your peace consistently is not an instrument of God's plan for your life. She is a distraction from it. One of the most painful things is when you're blinded by love or desire and ignore these warning signs. You may convince yourself, I'll tolerate it for now. Maybe it will get better. But the pattern is usually revealing a deeper truth. God does not intend for your life to be marked by constant unrest. Relationships that align with His design will lift your spirit, inspire your growth, and protect your peace. Relationships that don't will drain, distract, and destabilize you. Here's a principle I want you to carry with you. Peace is not negotiable. It is not optional. If a woman in your life consistently destroys your peace, it is a spiritual red flag. It is a sign that you need to evaluate the relationship honestly. You must ask yourself whether her presence elevates your soul or diminishes it, whether she is a safe harbor or a storm, whether she inspires your faith or diminishes it. One of the most heartbreaking things I see in men's lives is a slowing or stalling of their God-given purpose. Not because they lacked ability, vision, or faith, but because the wrong person distracted them from it. Today, I want to talk about a woman who attacks your purpose and weakens your calling. This is not necessarily about someone overtly trying to harm you. Often, it's subtle, it's passive, it's emotional, and it's insidious. She may appear supportive at first, but underneath, her influence chips away at the dreams and calling that God placed in your heart. God has a purpose for every man, a calling that is uniquely designed. It's not just a career, not just a ministry, not just a life plan. It's the expression of the divine blueprint within you. And that purpose is sacred. When the wrong woman enters your life, even with the best intentions, she can unintentionally or intentionally weaken that purpose. She might belittle your dreams, question your decisions, or subtly make you feel guilty for pursuing what God put in your heart. She may make you doubt your calling, distract you with her own needs, or demand priorities that conflict with your purpose. The first way to recognize this is by evaluating how your dreams are treated in the relationship. A woman who is from God will celebrate your calling, even when it challenges her. She will cheer you on when you take bold steps, when you say yes to God, even if it's uncomfortable for the relationship. But a woman who is not from God may respond with jealousy, resentment, or passive discouragement. She may say things like, "Do you really need to do that?" Or, "Why are you always so focused on your goals?" At first, it may seem like concern, but concern that consistently undermines your purpose is a warning sign. Let me illustrate this. I knew a young man who had a dream of starting a ministry to reach underprivileged youth in his city. It was a calling he had felt since high school, and he had prepared his whole life for it. Then he started dating a woman who seemed perfect at first, loving, supportive, beautiful, and kind. But soon, subtle comments began. "Are you sure this is the right time? I wish you spent more time with me than with your ministry. Why can't you just focus on us?" At first, he brushed it off, thinking she was just expressing concern, but over time, he found himself questioning his purpose, making compromises, and slowing down the ministry. Her influence, though not overtly malicious, weakened his calling, and that is exactly the danger of a woman who attacks your purpose. Another way to discern this is by observing her reactions to your growth and progress. A woman who is from God will rejoice when you take steps forward in faith, when you grow in skill, character, or influence. She will support your development, even if it means temporary inconvenience for her. But a woman who isn't from God may feel threatened by your progress, subtly criticize your achievements, or try to redirect your energy towards something that benefits her more than it benefits God's plan for you. Growth often makes people uncomfortable, and if she responds with discomfort that is not loving or supportive, it is a warning. Men, this is serious because your purpose is not negotiable. God's calling cannot be compromised without consequences. When you allow someone into your life who diminishes your calling, it's not just about your dreams, it's about God's plans. A woman who weakens your calling is, in essence, weakening God's work in your life. She may not even realize she is doing it, and you may rationalize it as love or companionship, but the effect is real. You can feel it in your heart, in your vision. You wake up one day and wonder why the fire God put in your soul feels dimmer, why your clarity feels clouded, why your sense of destiny is blurry. Often, the answer is right in front of you. A woman who attacks your purpose also tends to subtly question your worth and identity. Your calling is part of your identity. When someone belittles your dreams, criticizes your ambitions, or pressures you to compromise your calling, they are indirectly questioning who you are and what God has made you to be. That can be devastating, especially if you are susceptible to seeking approval from the wrong person. God never designed you to shrink to accommodate someone who doesn't support your God-given destiny. One of the most powerful ways to recognize this is by evaluating her reactions when you make decisions aligned with your purpose. Does she encourage you, pray for you, or celebrate your steps forward? Or does she become frustrated, critical, or distant? Does she create obstacles, whether intentionally or indirectly, that make you question your journey? A woman from God will not feel threatened by your calling. She will align with it, even if it requires sacrifice, because God's plan is bigger than personal comfort. A woman who weakens your calling cannot see past her own needs and insecurities, and her influence will slowly erode your spiritual, emotional, and even professional momentum. The Bible is very clear about this principle. Amos 3:3 says, "Can two walk together unless they are agreed?" When it comes to purpose, alignment is not optional. If your heart and your calling are not mutually supported in a relationship, you are on a path of compromise. God wants you to walk with someone who agrees with your vision, who encourages your mission, and who amplifies the gifts He has given you. Let me share another story. A man I know was extremely talented in business and had a vision to create an ethical company that also served the community. He started dating a woman who seemed wonderful, fun, beautiful, intelligent. But she constantly questioned his decisions, subtly criticized his time commitments, and made him feel guilty for pursuing his professional goals. He began to compromise his standards just to maintain peace in the relationship. Within months, he realized his progress had slowed, his focus had shifted, and his energy was being consumed by relational conflict rather than growth. His calling wasn't lost, but it was certainly weakened, and the relationship that should have uplifted him became a source of distraction. Men, I want you to hear this clearly. The woman you allow into your life can either amplify your purpose or diminish it. The choice is critical. Purpose is sacred. Calling is non-negotiable. If you feel consistently drained, distracted, or diminished in the presence of a woman, it's not a coincidence. Your heart, your vision, and your calling are being tested. A woman who is from God will never demand that you compromise your calling for her comfort. She will challenge you in love when you are off course, support you when you are pushing forward, and celebrate with you when you see God's hand move in your life. She will be a partner in your mission, not an obstacle. And here's the key: when your calling is thriving and your purpose is being honored, every other area of your life becomes stronger. Your peace, your faith, and your relationships all benefit when your calling is protected. So, how do you recognize a woman who attacks your purpose and weakens your calling? Observe her reactions to your dreams. Watch how she responds to your growth. Listen to how she talks about your time, and evaluate whether her presence energizes or drains your mission. This is not about perfection. No relationship is perfect, but it is about alignment with God's plan for your life. A woman who is from God will lift you up, challenge you to be better, and align her life with the God-given mission in your heart. There's a principle in life and in relationships that is simple but profound. True partnership is revealed in the hard times, not just the good times. I want to talk today about a woman who is present for your benefits, but absent from your battles. This is a type of relationship that can look appealing from the outside. She laughs with you in your victories, enjoys your successes, celebrates when life is easy, and is present for all the perks and pleasures that come with being with you. But when the storms hit, when challenges arise, when your character, faith, or endurance is tested, she is nowhere to be found. The truth is, God never designed a woman to only be with a man when life is comfortable. He designed her to be a partner, a helper, a companion who stands in the trenches with you, who prays with you in the dark, who fights alongside you when circumstances are difficult. A woman who is absent during your battles may be loving in moments of joy, but she is not from God because she is not built to honor and uphold the sacred covenant of partnership in adversity. Let me make this practical. Many men fall into the trap of being impressed by charm, beauty, or superficial attention. They see a woman who is fun, engaging, attractive, supportive when life is easy, and they believe she is the one God wants them to marry. But life is never all joy. There will be trials, setbacks, financial pressure, family crisis, spiritual testing, and emotional challenges. How a woman responds in those moments is far more important than how she responds when life is convenient. Think about this. A woman who disappears when things get hard may not only abandon you emotionally, but may also encourage compromise. She may suggest shortcuts, question your decisions, or subtly push you toward easier paths that do not align with your calling. A woman who is absent in battle is not a source of strength, but a source of distraction. She may enjoy the rewards of your hard work, but she is unwilling to endure the process with you. God designed relationships to be sacred partnerships, where both parties share in the struggles as well as the successes. When one person is only present for the benefits, the balance is broken and the relationship becomes toxic in ways that often take years to recognize. I want to give you an example. I knew a man deeply committed to his faith and his calling. He worked long hours, invested in his community, and faced constant opposition in his industry. He began dating a woman who, on the surface, seemed perfect. She was charming, attractive, and very supportive when life was easy. She celebrated his achievements, enjoyed the lifestyle that came with his work, and was always present for the good moments. But when the company faced financial struggles, when ministry work became demanding, when personal trials came, she began to withdraw. She complained, she criticized, she questioned his priorities, and eventually, she disappeared emotionally. What seemed like a supportive relationship turned out to be one that only existed for her comfort and benefit. The pattern was clear. She was absent from the battles that mattered most. Another indicator is emotional resilience. A woman from God demonstrates courage, empathy, and loyalty during difficult times. She knows that battles are part of life, and she chooses to stand with you even when it's inconvenient or uncomfortable. A woman who is only present for benefits is often inconsistent, emotionally unstable, or unwilling to face challenges that don't directly serve her interests. This is not a reflection of her external beauty or charm. It is a reflection of character and alignment with God's principles. It's also important to recognize that being present in battles doesn't mean blindly agreeing with everything you do. It means being committed, being faithful, and being willing to walk through difficulty with you. True partnership may involve challenging you, holding you accountable, or speaking truth when necessary, but it is always rooted in love and loyalty. Conversely, a woman who is absent in your battles avoids accountability, minimizes your struggles, or prioritizes her own comfort over supporting your growth. Men, I want you to hear this clearly. A woman who is only present for your benefits may initially feel convenient, attractive, or safe, but she is dangerous in the long run. She can subtly shape your decisions, influence your priorities, and ultimately pull you away from your purpose. Relationships are tested in storms, not in sunshine. Your calling, your character, and your faith will be tested in trials. If your partner is absent in those moments, you are being set up for heartache, compromise, and distraction from God's plan. The Bible gives us a clear picture of the type of companionship God desires. In Ecclesiastes 4:9-10, it says, "Two are better than one because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, one will lift up his companion. But woe to him who is alone when he falls, for he has no one to help him up." A woman who is present for your benefits, but absent in your battles, is not walking with you in a way that God intended. She is absent when lifting you up matters most. I want to challenge you to evaluate the relationships in your life honestly. When was the last time she supported you in a difficult moment? When did she pray for you during a crisis? When did she stand by your side even when circumstances were uncomfortable or inconvenient? These questions are not meant to make you cynical about relationships. They are meant to help you discern whether a woman is aligned with God's design for partnership. Another thing to watch for is consistency. People who are from God show up not just when it's convenient, but consistently over time. They are reliable, faithful, and loyal, even when there is no immediate reward. A woman who is absent from your battles will often show inconsistency. She will be present for celebrations, for easy times, for moments that serve her, but she will vanish when life gets challenging. And here's the danger: over time, you may start to rationalize her absence, excuse her behavior, or accept less than God intended. Emotional accountability is another key. A godly woman will hold herself accountable for her words, her actions, and her influence on your life. She will not be dismissive, selfish, or indifferent when you are facing struggles. Conversely, a woman who is absent from battles often avoids responsibility, deflects criticism, and prioritizes her comfort above loyalty and love. Over time, this erodes trust, stability, and spiritual alignment. One of the most powerful ways to recognize this is by paying attention to her presence during your moments of vulnerability. When you are honest about your fears, weaknesses, and challenges, does she respond with empathy and encouragement? Or does she minimize your struggles, avoid them, or withdraw? A woman who is from God embraces vulnerability with you. She understands that true intimacy is built in the trenches, not just in the celebrations. A woman who is absent in battles cannot do this. She enjoys the rewards but avoids the work, the pain, and the growth that comes from walking through challenges together. Ultimately, men, God calls you to relationships that honor your heart, your calling, and your peace. A woman who is present only for your benefits but absent in your battles may appear attractive, convenient, or easy, but she is not aligned with God's design. She may make life more enjoyable temporarily, but she will not walk with you through the storms that shape your character and calling. I want to talk to you today about one of the most critical principles for discerning a godly relationship: honor. Honor is the foundation of every healthy connection. It's the glue that holds character, respect, and integrity together. When a woman doesn't honor God, herself, or you, it's a red flag that cannot be ignored. This isn't about perfection or legalism. It's about alignment with God's design. Relationships are meant to elevate your faith, your purpose, and your character. When someone fails to honor God themselves or you, it creates a ripple effect that erodes trust, peace, and destiny. Let's start with the first part: honoring God. A woman who honors God recognizes His authority, seeks His guidance, and prioritizes her spiritual life. She understands that her life is not her own. It belongs to the Lord. When a woman lacks reverence for God, it shows in her priorities, her conversations, her choices, and her values. She may dismiss prayer, belittle spiritual disciplines, or make fun of faith-based decisions. At first, this might seem trivial, but over time, it creates a spiritual gap between you and her. Your faith may be tested, your convictions may be challenged, and you may find yourself compromising in areas that once were non-negotiable. A woman who does not honor God cannot be a partner in a godly journey because her foundation is not rooted in the one who matters most. I've met men who thought they could handle a woman who was casual about faith. They told themselves, "I'll just pray for her. She'll come around eventually." But here's the truth: spiritual alignment cannot be forced. God is not calling you to marry someone who undermines your devotion. He's calling you to walk with someone who strengthens it, not someone who diminishes it. When a woman doesn't honor God, it becomes a slow erosion of faith, character, and purpose. The danger is subtle, but the impact is profound. The second part of honor is honoring herself. A woman who respects herself sets boundaries, values her integrity, and refuses to compromise her principles for temporary pleasure or convenience. She understands her worth is found in God, not in attention, approval, or worldly gain. But a woman who lacks self-respect often tolerates or engages in behaviors that are harmful to her, to you, and to the relationship. She may compromise her morals, accept disrespect, or place herself in situations that undermine her dignity. When a woman does not honor herself, it sends a signal that she will struggle to honor you consistently, because respect begins with how we treat ourselves. Let me illustrate this. I knew a young man who was dating a woman who seemed ambitious and talented. On the surface, everything was fine. But over time, he noticed patterns that concerned him. She frequently engaged in gossip, disrespected others in private, and compromised her values to fit in socially. At first, he dismissed it as minor issues, but over time, it became clear that she had no consistent standard of self-respect. He realized that a woman who does not honor herself cannot consistently honor him either, because her lack of personal integrity spills into the relationship. Respect, honor, and integrity are inseparable. Now, the third part of honor is honoring you. A woman who honors you values your heart, your calling, and your boundaries. She does not belittle your dreams, criticize your character, or manipulate your decisions for her benefit. Instead, she encourages, uplifts, and strengthens you. When a woman does not honor you, she may speak negatively, act selfishly, or fail to support your spiritual, emotional, or professional growth. This behavior may be subtle: sarcastic comments, passive-aggressive attitudes, or small acts of disrespect, but over time, it erodes your confidence, peace, and clarity. Men, one of the most dangerous patterns is subtle dishonor. It's easy to dismiss, but it's deadly. A woman who does not honor you may also question your leadership, mock your convictions, or pressure you to compromise in ways that make you uncomfortable. You may rationalize it, saying, "She doesn't mean it," or "I can change her," but the pattern persists. Honor is not about feelings, it's about consistent action, character, and alignment with God's principles. When honor is absent, the foundation of the relationship is unstable. Here's another practical example. A man I counseled had been dating a woman who initially seemed supportive of his ministry and business endeavors. But he began to notice subtle patterns. She mocked his priorities in private, expressed frustration when he prayed or attended church, and pressured him to make decisions that favored her comfort over his calling. At first, he ignored it, hoping it would improve. But over time, he realized that her behavior was not just a personal flaw, it was a reflection of her inability to honor God, herself, and him. The relationship, though seemingly normal to outsiders, was spiritually dangerous and emotionally draining. It's important to recognize that honor is not about controlling or judging a partner. It's about alignment with God's design and mutual respect. A woman who honors God herself and who does not demand perfection, but she consistently demonstrates integrity, loyalty, and respect. She elevates the relationship rather than diminishes it. She challenges you to be better, encourages your calling, and maintains personal standards that reflect God's character. Men, I want to challenge you to evaluate your relationships honestly. Ask yourself, does she honor God in her words, actions, and choices? Does she respect herself and maintain personal integrity? Does she honor me in the way she treats me, supports me, and interacts with my life? These questions are not meant to make you cynical. They are meant to protect your heart, calling, and spiritual alignment. Another way to recognize a lack of honor is to observe patterns over time. Occasional mistakes happen in every relationship, but consistent disrespect, disregard for God's principles, or self-compromising behavior is a pattern. Patterns reveal character. Character reveals alignment with God. Alignment with God reveals the potential for a godly, lasting relationship. When these patterns are missing, it is not a minor flaw, it is a spiritual warning. It's also worth noting that honor is relational. You cannot be honored in isolation from being honored by your partner. A woman who does not honor you will subtly or overtly diminish your confidence, your calling, and your influence. She may undermine your decisions, gossip about you, or create situations that erode trust. Honor is not optional in a relationship. Without it, love cannot flourish in a way that aligns with God's design. Finally, men, remember this: God is serious about your heart, your calling, and your character. He does not want you to settle for someone who diminishes these things. A woman who does not honor God, herself, or you may appear attractive, convenient, or charming, but her influence is ultimately destructive. God designed relationships to protect, encourage, and strengthen, not to compromise, weaken, or misalign your life growth. It's a word that every man should take seriously. God has placed in you a vision, a calling, a potential that is meant to expand, to challenge, to stretch you beyond comfort. And the people you allow into your life have a massive impact on whether you grow or stagnate. One of the most dangerous signs that a woman is not from God is that she doesn't inspire your growth. She actively or passively stunts it. This is not always obvious at first because growth can be uncomfortable, challenging, and even intimidating. A woman who stunts your growth often offers comfort, convenience, or safety, but at the cost of your God-given potential. Let's be clear about what growth looks like. Growth means becoming the man God created you to be, spiritually, emotionally, professionally, and relationally. It means developing discipline, resilience, vision, and character. Growth is often accompanied by discomfort, sacrifice, and hard decisions. A woman who is from God recognizes this and encourages you through it. She celebrates your breakthroughs, challenges you when you settle for less, and pushes you to step into the fullness of God's calling for your life. Conversely, a woman who stunts growth subtly discourages ambition, questions vision, and pressures you to remain within a comfort zone that feels safe, but is spiritually and emotionally limiting. One of the first ways to recognize this is by observing how she reacts to your ambitions. A woman who stunts growth may say things like, "Why do you need to work so hard?" Or, "Can't we just enjoy what we have?" At first, it might sound reasonable. After all, balance is important. But if she consistently discourages steps that stretch you toward God's plan, it's a warning. Growth is never about ease. It's about alignment with God's calling and anyone who consistently resists that is stunting the very life God is trying to develop in you. I want to share a story. A young man I knew was called to start a ministry in his city. He had a vision to reach people, to make an impact, and to glorify God through service and leadership. He met a woman who seemed ideal, charming, attractive, socially adept. But as his ministry grew, she became increasingly uncomfortable. She questioned the time he spent in prayer and service, criticized his long hours, and suggested he take the easy path to avoid stress. Over time, he began compromising, scaling back his efforts, and prioritizing her comfort over his calling. What seemed like a loving relationship at first turned into a subtle barrier to his growth. She didn't intend harm, but her presence consistently stunted the progress God wanted for him. Another way to discern this is by evaluating her mindset. Growth-oriented people think in terms of possibility, potential, and God's vision. People who stunt growth often focus on limitations, fear, and comfort. A woman who doesn't inspire growth may be comfortable with mediocrity, resistant to change, and unwilling to stretch herself or the relationship into new heights. This doesn't just affect you, it creates a dynamic where both of you remain in a comfort zone that feels safe but limits your spiritual, emotional, and professional potential. A woman who inspires growth will challenge you in love. She will ask difficult questions like, are you fully pursuing what God has called you to do? Are you compromising your principles for convenience? Growth is uncomfortable, and discomfort is where transformation happens. If your partner consistently shields you from discomfort, discourages ambition, or normalizes complacency, she is subtly stunting the life God wants to cultivate in you. Men, it's also important to look at the way she interacts with your faith. Spiritual growth is central to your identity, and a woman who stunts growth may subtly or openly discourage spiritual development. She may make fun of your disciplines, distract you from prayer, or pressure you to prioritize worldly comfort over eternal purpose. Conversely, a woman who is from God will elevate your faith, celebrate your breakthroughs, and encourage you to step boldly into God's calling, even when it challenges both of you. Another indicator is intellectual and emotional growth. A woman who inspires growth encourages curiosity, learning, and self-reflection. She challenges ideas respectfully, motivates problem solving, and celebrates achievements beyond material success. A woman who stunts growth discourages ambition, mocks curiosity, or makes you feel guilty for pursuing knowledge, skill, or excellence. Over time, this dynamic can erode confidence, weaken motivation, and diminish potential. Let's also consider habits and influence. The people we spend the most time with shape our habits, priorities, and even worldview. A woman who stunts growth may foster laziness, distraction, or indulgence that feels convenient, but ultimately limits progress. She may resist spiritual disciplines, discourage challenging work, or prioritize short-term comfort over long-term vision. In contrast, a woman who inspires growth elevates habits, accountability, and alignment with God's purpose. She will cheer on your disciplines, push you to stay consistent, and celebrate the pursuit of excellence rooted in God's calling. One of the most dangerous patterns is emotional manipulation that inhibits growth. Some women may unconsciously stifle growth through criticism, guilt-tripping, or passive-aggressive behaviors. For example, when you take bold steps, they may respond with comments like, "Why can't we just stay where we are?" Or, "Why do you have to be so intense?" Over time, these subtle pressures can shape behavior, reduce risk-taking, and prevent you from fully stepping into God's plan. Emotional manipulation may not be overt, but it is powerful in keeping you from the growth God intends. Men, one of the clearest ways to discern a woman who stunts growth is by evaluating your heart after interactions. Do you feel inspired, encouraged, and motivated to pursue God's best? Or do you feel drained, limited, and constrained? Growth is energy intensive. It requires courage, discipline, and focus. If your partner consistently saps that energy, she may be unintentionally or intentionally limiting your potential. God calls us to relationships that fuel life, not constrain it. Another crucial aspect is long-term vision alignment. A woman who inspires growth will have her own vision and purpose, and she will support yours. She will see challenges as opportunities to develop character and strengthen the relationship. A woman who stunts growth often has a short-term perspective, prioritizing comfort, security, or convenience over transformation and God-aligned ambition. Vision misalignment can create friction that erodes faith, passion, and purpose over time. Finally, men, remember this principle: growth is sacred. God has placed within you potential that is too valuable to be stunted by the wrong relationships. A woman who doesn't inspire growth, even subtly, may be beautiful, charming, or convenient, but she will ultimately limit the life God has designed for you. Growth, character, faith, and purpose are non-negotiable, and God will honor your pursuit of these things. A relationship that supports growth is rare, but it is invaluable. It challenges, strengthens, and aligns you with the destiny God has placed in your heart. In closing, men, the relationships we choose have eternal consequences, not just temporary comfort. God has placed a vision, a calling, and a destiny within you, and He designed relationships to amplify that, not diminish it. A woman who isn't from God will pull you away from His presence, disrupt your peace, attack your purpose, abandon you in battles, fail to honor God herself or you, and stunt your growth. These are not merely relationship issues. They are spiritual warnings. But here's the hoping: God wants you to walk in clarity and discernment. He wants you to surround yourself with people who encourage faith, foster peace, protect calling, and inspire growth. He wants you to experience a partnership that strengthens you, uplifts your heart, and aligns with His purpose. Recognizing the signs is not about fear or cynicism. It's about wisdom, obedience, and protecting the life God has entrusted to you. Every step you take in discernment, every boundary you uphold, every choice to prioritize God first sets the foundation for a life and a relationship that honors Him. Don't compromise on what matters most. Pursue relationships that elevate your faith, safeguard your calling, and align with God's design. Guard your heart, protect your peace, and walk boldly in the destiny God has prepared for you